opened. So that's the original Worcester State. It was back where, kind of where Union Station is, on a hill back there. Very well documented. The photos you see at the bottom were all taken early 1890s because we had a booth at the 1892 World's Fair in Chicago. And they were photographing our incredibly modern physical plant, which this was back in the day. And so we have a very well documented building. And so part of what we see up here are just some of it's sort of decorative. I mean, those are actually collection items hanging on the wall, but they're big and bulky, so I hang them up and keep them on permanent display. These materials here are the rare books collection. They're not necessarily tremendously rare, as rare books in Massachusetts goes, but they're old, and when we get old materials, they come up to me. We have 19th century school books. I like to keep a selection of those. Redundant Worcester State yearbooks, course catalogs. I have these in a collection, but these are extra copies. But then we also just have unusual materials that have come in. I like to keep a selection of children's books that would have been used in schools and used in the home, and faculty publications. History of Worcester. This collection is currently being processed now, which is what all that stuff is there. We're adding it to the catalog. Manual of Practical Political Action. So this is a book that shows sort of how to do community organizing. But it's from the Roosevelt era. This is like the New Deal era, 1930, 1939, 1940. And it's essentially a handbook for community organizing, essentially.
Very nice.
And I don't think, things like this may exist online, but having the original is kind of nice. What's anything I could pull out that's kind of an interesting item? The earliest item we have is about 1817, so it's not super old. I'd love to get my hands on some medieval illuminated manuscript pages, those kinds of things, but I don't have a budget for that this year. So it tends to be Worcester-related, Worcester State, and then materials related to education, things that are rare or fine, and then children's literature. And back here is where the actual collection lives. This particular space is a processing space, so this is really where a lot of the processing work I showed you downstairs happens. We spread things out, we organize it. This is actually a collection of index cards where my intern is currently trying to figure out a series arrangement for the Women and Gender Studies collection, which we just got. So we're proposing that might be a series, and then below, courses and curriculum, and below that seeing what groups of materials we have that actually belong in that series. And that's kind of how we sort of map out. That's one of the ways that I map out for a big collection, how to arrange it. You see here under weights, we have materials that have been curled up over the years. This is flattening out nicely. These are still kind of, I can see they're still kind of curled up. So I'm going to keep them under weights. These, incidentally, are just it's an old encyclopedia set that I upholstered with acid-free paper. And over here is the postcard collection I mentioned that just came in recently.
Oh, yes, that's right.
From a faculty member. And these I'm going to process. Actually, just ordered sleeves for these. He also collects newspapers. So there was a great flood here in Worcester. Hurricane Diane flooded Worcester and a lot of the towns around here. And this is pretty cool. Again, this probably exists digitally somewhere, I would guess, but I'm going to encapsulate this in Mylar and keep it. And these materials, these just got cataloged recently, so it's Kennedy-related materials. This is an interesting item. It's called a jackdaw. In the pre-digital era, this was an educational tool where you would make copies of primary source documents, and elementary schools would buy these, and you would give them to kids, and they would sort of learn about a particular topic. In this case, it was slavery and abolition, using these sorts of copies of early primary sources. So I'll keep some of those online. Again, this would be something you would do online today. You would go onto a computer, but before computers, that's how they did in the elementary school classes. Becker is sort of interfiled here. We have large format Becker materials here. including large format posters. And then these brown boxes up here. The missing boxes are the ones I have downstairs. And so this is the bulk of the collection here.
That's incredible.
Notice the labels. These are extremely heavy boxes, and so I like to keep people very aware of that.
We remember.
And these are accruals to be added. So we have existing materials here, existing collections, and I'm going to add these. So I just got the interview guide from Worcester State Career Services. I'll find a place for that. Our Unity Day event. I just shove it here until I have time to get it into the actual collection. Most of what we see on these shelves is our Dennis Brutus collection. He was a South African poet and anti-apartheid activist who was friends with one of our faculty members, and he gave us the bulk of his papers when he died. And that's our biggest collection. And that details a lot of his activist work in South Africa, as well as his teaching and the poetry he wrote in the 70s and 80s. And that was another huge collection.
What incredible information.
Yeah. Is this a Becker? I think this is a Becker item. I'm sort of not sure what to do with. I'm pretty sure this is a Becker. Kind of a cool object. It's got these original stamps on it. Scranton.
It does seem a little smaller than the height of the diploma downstairs.
I think this might have been a smaller one.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of just hanging on to it because it's like it's
a non-business one.
It's not Becker. It doesn't have Becker stuff on it, but it does have the stamp. So it's one of those oddball items I just kind of hang on to because it's kind of cool.
Oh, of course.
And of course, all the swag. No more drinking beer, never beer steins or shot glasses. But we have our little sippy cups here. Student government administration, stress devices, bubble. Juice. Now for this, I'm going to dump the juice out, but I'll save the container because if I put this in a box with the juice in it, you can imagine what's going to happen in 20 years, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about stuff like that? Worcester State basketball alumni. That's a big shirt.
And when was this from?
This is no date. The Chandler symbol, I'll have to look up, see when that particular symbol was used. I don't think it's more than 15 years old. Because as long as it's a backlog, people can access it. My goal is to get stuff accessible, processed, and ready to go.